So today we're going to talk about the differences between the genders in their communication. It's definitely a big issue that's rising up nowadays, and I think it's, at least in a to some extent, it's part of why there's so much tension between the genders.
Yeah, I feel like the main issue is that a lot of the times we're saying like the same thing, but in different ways, and so it can get misconstrued a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think before we get started here, I think it's important to make it clear what we're talking about. We're not talking about like men versus women or anything in between. We're talking specifically about like the abstract, what is feminine and what is masculine.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you just see that expressed, that you see more women are feminine than men, more men are masculine than women, so that becomes expressed in that sense. But the ideas in the communication channels that we're talking about are completely abstract from actual people and manifestations of gender.
Yeah, so basically the gender identities, quote unquote, doesn't have to necessarily map onto, your biological sex. It can be like, I mean, that's another topic, but basically, yes.
Exactly. It's like, I know guys that communicate through much more feminine channels, and I know girls who are much more masculine in the way they communicate.
Yeah.
So it's completely abstracted. Exactly.
Yeah.
But, go ahead. Why don't you start?
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess what we were talking about a few days ago, we were talking about, like, differences in texting communication. And, well, I guess first you were saying how, like, a lot of men that don't really enjoy texting.
Yeah.
Like, as a form of actual communication, which I thought was very interesting because that's probably one of my, preferred methods of communication.
It's not so much that we don't enjoy texting, or some of my friends don't. It's just the messages we send are very short.
Yeah.
It's very to the point, and it's not like you're going to use texting to send a large amount of information. Very rarely with any of my guy friends is it full screens of text.
Yeah.
It's very short, maybe like 2 lines of text at most.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed like a lot of times when we're sharing messages back and forth from like our friends, that you have these long stories that'll like span multiple pages. And it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I look at it as if you're just talking, Like if I was actually telling a story to a friend and it has a lot of information, then I would want to get that all out. I just can't because, we're not physically next to each other. I'm not able to call them or anything. So I just, it kind of just maps directly onto that conversation through text.
Sure.
So
I don't know, for guys, or at least for myself and some of my friends, it just seems like that's just so much work.
Yeah.
It's just to have to read through the whole thing, to type the whole thing. Plus, maybe part of it, we have bigger thumbs, so it's harder to text. But even then, completely outside of that, I don't know, my basic theory on the differences between what is masculine and what is feminine forms of communication, it boils down to both need to send the same base amount of information, right? Both genders want to communicate at the same caliber, the same amount of actual information gets sent.
Yeah.
Because we're, in essence, holding the same conversation, but it's the way that information is sent and where the complexity of it lies is what's different. So a lot of this theory actually was born out of Claude Shannon's information theory, where there's the channels of communication and then there's the actual message that gets sent through that channel. And that's the basis of everything that pretty much even exists. But especially with how we communicate with each other, what I found is those who communicate more in a more feminine manner tend to use very simple, straightforward, broader ways of communicating. So broader channels, like text messages. It's very explicit. It's very straightforward. You're receiving a message that'll list out everything. You know, you'll receive a whole wall of text.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that you say that, you know, the traditionally feminine form of communication is very straightforward. I think the whole thing, though, is maybe you're just missing the complexity that can be said in that sort of verbal communication, because I don't think...
Yeah, let me keep explaining and see if you still have a contradiction, is what I'm saying. So the channel itself, so the way the information is sent, is very broad and straightforward.
Yes.
But the thing is, the message they send is exceptionally complex, and that's where all the intricacies of the information in the message is. And that's why when you get a text from a girl, and it, like, or anyone that's feminine, and it fills the entire screen, you have to read it like 6 times because there's layers and layers of messages. I say it's like sending a Rubik's Cube through like a train tunnel. It's a very broad channel, but the message itself is complicated.
Okay.
With guys, I found it's exactly the opposite. And you see this in particular with physical interaction, where it's very complex channels that can be used to send lots of varying messages. But the individual messages that guys send are very concrete, very straightforward. For example, a handshake. Handshake is like, if I walk in and I meet someone, there's a bunch of different channels I'm looking at all at once. I'm looking at their body language, their eye contact, their handshake, how exactly did they say hello, all those little channels. It's very complex through the different channels that I'm trying to actually read and interpret the message that this person's trying to send me. But the information from each individual channel is very simple. The handshake is confident. The eye contact is trusting. You know, it's things like that. It's just a very straightforward. Or the handshake tells me right away that this person isn't someone to trust. This isn't someone I like.
Right. I mean, I think women also send that physical sort of like signals and, you know, indirect messages as well. So I don't necessarily think that's I don't think it's like mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and there are women, and again, we are saying it's masculine versus feminine. So all men are at least somewhat feminine, and all women are at least somewhat masculine. But I believe from my own experience that the caliber to which that's expressed using the more complex channels, but sending simpler messages, is much more prominent in more masculine individuals. And especially like it's what we were talking about before, where if I'm with one of my guy friends and he asks me like, hey, how you doing? You doing okay? And I just like nod and put my hand on his shoulder. Right there, that sends an extreme amount of information. That little interaction, just because of how complex the channels are, there's a lot of information that gets sent there. While I noticed with girls, if like I did that with you, like you said, hey, how you doing? So I just kind of nodded, didn't even say anything, and put my hand on your shoulder, you would be like, what does this even mean?
Yeah, girls definitely like to talk it out.
Yeah, you would think I didn't want to talk, or like I didn't even want to express myself, when in my head, I just fully expressed how I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, you are expecting a complex message to come in a very straightforward way. You're expecting very explicit, like, okay, this is the message, now I just need to figure out what does it exactly mean.
Yeah.
Well, with guys, we're expecting, okay, I need to figure out where the message is coming from, and it's going to be obvious what it means.
So going back to the whole like kind of body language and like like physical signals, would you agree that for men it might be a little more non-conscious, whereas for women sending physical signals, it is very calculated? Because I think
is it calculated? I didn't even know that.
I think that's the difference. Well, I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, if I wanted
your own personal experience.
Yeah, if I was trying to send a signal to like a guy I was interested in, I would think about it a little bit. You know, I'd think like, okay, what perfume am I gonna wear? Like, how should I, stand and everything? Like, it's very, what is gonna put me like in the best light possible. And it might be like, I'm sure guys do that as well. But I think I don't know. I think if like women want to send a signal, they will send it. You know, it's like intentional.
See, I do agree with that. And I think it's because I can almost see like an evolutionary, or even just like a social. What do you even call it? Social evolution.
Yeah.
So it's with girls, with women, or anybody who's more feminine. They're trying to use that like physical aspect as almost like a tool,
Yeah.
right, to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
While with guys, so how do I express this?
Well, I mean,
this is a challenge.
I think that. Sorry, but
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I think like when you hear what you hear, like, you know, growing up as a teenager or whatever, like you always hear like, oh, guys are very physical.
Yeah.
And so you think like, oh, okay, I have to try to appeal to like the physical side.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like women, especially, use that physical communication as a directed tool to
Yeah.
get something, while
Yeah.
guys use that physical tool as more of a way of like reading each other. It's not like trying to. I don't care. I don't want your like the other guy's attention. I'm not trying to like get something from him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn about them.
But-
so the way
yeah.
guys use their physical communication, it's almost necessary that we find ways that the other guys aren't able to manipulate. Right? It's like that handshake. You can try to fake the handshake, but it's really tough. It's kind of just, it's
But like, what if you
subconscious.
practice? What if
You can practice, and guys do
Yeah.
practice handshakes. Guys do practice standing up straight. You know, you can fake it, but there's a certain. I mean, if you fake the handshake, it almost inevitably becomes that whole fake it till you make it, or you are the sum of your actions
Yeah.
kind of concept. Because if I just pretend to be confident, either I collapse because I'm not actually as confident as I'm trying to be, or I become that actual person. And
Yeah.
it's almost like guys have naturally, you know, through social evolution, sought to read the attributes of other guys that they know they can't just manipulate. So that way you are reading the true person as opposed to reading, you know, their false self.
Mm-hmm.
While with women, that's not really the goal. The goal isn't like, I'm going to use my physical, you know, the more physical form of communication so I can read who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, I already know who you are. I want you to now. It's different. It's got a
I want
different
you to know
functionality.
who I am.
Yeah, I want you to know who I am and be attracted to who I am
Yeah.
and want to be.
But like, like you're talking about like, you know, more of a friendship communication between guys,
It's not even a friendship. It's
or well, not
That's
like
just
not
how
like a friendship,
guys-
but like a non-romantic situation.
yeah.
Like, what
definitely.
if it was somebody you were interested in?
Like in a gay relationship?
No. Like, I mean, like, yeah, or anybody.
Or are you saying like between guys and girls?
Guys and girls, or
Okay,
like,
so how
if
do
a
guys
guy,
use
whoever
physical-
guy is attracted to, what kind of signals would you send?
Sure. Okay, I get what you mean. So girls send very directed, or women send very directed, like more conscious signals. And there's, of course, going to be tons of subconscious things that you do that you don't
Sure.
even realize.
Yeah.
For guys, though, I don't know. Just speaking from my own experience, because I don't think this is anything I've really discussed much with many of my other guy friends.
Mm-hmm.
But from my own experience, I do send a lot of directed. But I think I may be more of the exception than the rule, because I spent a lot of time doing like research online to see what body language, you know,
Yeah.
means in different
Yeah.
situations and how you can use body language.
Uh-huh.
And that was explicit research that I did.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just want to make sure it's still recording.
I don't know. I may be a little bit different.
Okay. Well, then explain like your thought process then.
For me, like trying to.
Yeah, like can you give an
swoon someone?
example? Can you give an example of like a time you used it? Blah blah blah. You used directed communication.
So I find myself a pretty lady, and I want to get her heart pumping. What do I do? Think gross. So I don't know. It's a lot of it's just from research. Things like which way are your feet pointing.
Yeah.
There was at least an extent. It wasn't always conscious, I guess. Sometimes though, I just consciously realized that I was doing something subconsciously. You know?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I realized that my feet
No, I know
are
what you
pointing
mean.
towards that person.
Right.
So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I probably.
Well,
do
yeah,
like them.
they say like that means that you like somebody.
Yeah.
It's not like do this if you like somebody, you know. So it's like a product.
In general, your feet point the direction you want to go. Like if someone wants to leave a conversation, they usually point their feet away from the conversation. I notice I do that a lot because I'm just so busy. I'm always like constantly trying to get out of the next
I feel like
conversation.
I do that too. I'm always like just kind of leaning back, like, haha, good joke.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm always
Stop
like saying
talking to
goodbye
me.
as I'm walking away, which I don't think leaves the best impression. But anyway, let's get back on the topic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. As far as guys go, there's a lot of just subconscious. See, I don't really want to call it subconscious though, because as far as the physical forms of communication go, it's kind of like a second language, you know?
Yeah. I can get
I
that.
think with girls, it is a lot more directed and conscious just because they're not fluent in the language of, you know, nonverbal physical communication. While with guys, it's just you inherently know what someone's trying to say through their nonverbals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one example I have is I was driving, I don't know, I was just driving and there was road work, and it was one of the guys that was trying to direct traffic and let you know when you could go because it was merged into a single lane. And we kind of nodded at each other, and it's like that nod sends like a very specific message, but it's the complexity of the nod is pretty in depth. And that's things like I was talking with you, do you remember?
Kind of.
And I asked you, like, we did the nod together, him and I. And I asked you, I was like, you saw him nod. Do you know exactly what he was trying to say? And I don't remember exactly what you came back with. It was just, but it wasn't like the exact message. But with me, it was like I could instantly like read what he exactly meant just with the subtleties of the nod.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like an inherently like guy thing, though.
I don't think it's an inherently guy thing, but it's something.
It might be more expressed, but I feel like both like masculine and feminine traits can utilize that or like understand that. So I don't know if that's like,
Or is it? Or would you say? See, I would say it's just that is more masculine than there's. I mean, women use masculine forms of communication the same way guys do.
yeah,
I'll send essays and text messages sometimes,
yeah,
but I'm not nearly as good at it or as fluent at it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. I suppose so. Makes sense.
maybe. I don't. All just theories.
Yeah. This is just based on like anecdotal evidence.
Yeah,
too.
there's so much anecdote, so
so,
none of this really
like,
means anything.
Everyone's like, no,
But
your guys
it'll
are
be
just
interesting to see if
weird.
people like agree or have their own stuff to add in. You know,
Yeah.
The bigger the pool of information and experience, the more accurate the model can become.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's like kind of like physical. Like we just spent a
think-
lot of time talking about
Yeah, I
that.
think guys are a lot more physical
Yeah, but like
or masculine.
I guess like going back to what we were talking about, like with the differences between, you know, texting,
Yeah.
which I mean, texting is it's a relatively new form of communication.
Sure.
So, but I guess I'm just like, I guess I'm just kind of curious because I feel like both, you know, like say in a heterosexual like relationship, both the guy and the girl, like they have trouble sometimes kind of deciphering what the other person is saying. At least like I know on my end I'm always like thinking, but I guess I'm just wondering, like, am I overthinking? Are there sometimes intentional things that like, you know, a guy put in a text message or something?
So I think for the most part, guys early on in relationships definitely play some games.
Yeah.
That may just be because the internet teaches them that they should play games.
I mean, yeah, that's what you always hear. Like, oh,
So-
you gotta wait a certain amount of time to text back or
And
whatever.
at the same time, you can say, oh, well, that's definitely a bad thing, but if they stop playing games, is their partner going to become disinterested and less likely to pursue the relationship? I don't know. That's a very complex issue.
Yeah, that is a very interesting issue. Maybe
But that's
we'll come
kind
back
of
to
like
that.
yeah, it's kind of like a side issue to this. So, your question of whether or not you're overthinking, I think yes, in general. I think if you are the more feminine communicator in your relationship, you're going to have a tendency to overthink the messages that your partner is sending you.
Yeah.
Because if you're more masculine, and this is almost by definition, right? It is theory, but it's subjective because it's how do you define what masculine communication is. So I'm saying I am defining masculine communication to be clear, straightforward messages.
Yes.
It's very to the point, it's direct. When I say yes, I mean yes. When I say no, I mean no. If I mean yes, but kind of, like it's that kind of like, yes,
Yeah.
I'll say it. I'll actually say like, okay, sure, I guess. And like, it'll be more explicit. But that's the thing is, if you're the more feminine communicator and you receive that just yes with no like long string of exclamation points afterwards, you're instantly going to think, oh, that must mean he doesn't actually want to do it, right? Like, he's not actually into it.
definitely.
But it's like, I said yes. That's...
I guess, like, I mean...
And that's the thing.
It could just be like a me thing, but I like to know for sure.
Yeah.
Like I like knowing things for sure.
I don't think that's just a you thing. I think that's a pretty common thing in relationships where the more feminine partner is struggling because, and I think it comes back to the model that we're talking about. I think this reinforces the model. The feminine communicator is expecting the message that they receive to be complex.
Yeah.
They're expecting it to have layers of information where if you read it like 6 times over, you're going to continue to get more information.
Yeah.
But what's actually sent by the more masculine communicator is a very straightforward message where you're supposed to be able to just read it once and you're done. You have everything you need.
Yeah.
And there's no layers to it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the problems with text messages is that
you can't read tone.
Well, you can read tone.
But you can read tone.
It's one broad form of communication. It seems like it's a more inherently feminine channel, right? It's more the train tunnel as opposed to, I consider like the guy's channel communication to be almost like sorting different letters at a post office where it's all the different boxes you kind of send, very concrete.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Letters through, like very simple, well-packaged messages, but a bunch of different channels.
Yeah.
Text messages doesn't really have that kind of post office feel, which is interesting because you would expect, if that was the case, you'd expect, especially with the physical component, for more guys to use Snapchat. But I found less guys tend to use Snapchat.
Well, I think because...
Or is that just me personally? Because I hate Snapchat.
It might just be you. I mean,
I hate Snapchat.
I do know guys that use Snapchat, but like...
Not as much.
I feel like...
Why are they always shirtless?
I don't know.
Put your shirt on if you're going to Snapchat.
Yeah, really.
And put the camera above your head because otherwise we can see your nostrils.
I think that's like another issue. Just guys just don't know how to take selfies. And if guys that do know how to take selfies, you don't want to be Snapchatting.
Yeah.
Because they're just like,
Yep.
They're just jerks.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I mean, I think like Snapchat is kind of just, I don't know. For me, it feels very feminine just because like the nature of all the filters and stuff.
And that's funny because it's, I don't know, why is that? Because you'd expect, it's more physical, right?
Yeah.
It's visual, physical.
Well,
is it
maybe
just because
guys just don't like snapping each other. Because I know plenty of guys that love, like they like to get a girl Snapchat. Like that's your first thing.
I wonder. I don't want to like stretch to try to make this case match the model, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the evidence doesn't support the model, then you gotta have to change the model. You can't just reinterpret the evidence. But it's at least an interesting thought experiment because women or more feminine communicators aren't as fluent per se in the physical communication and they have to consciously think about it more. It's easier for them to take photos of themselves and send that because they are already consciously thinking about, okay, this pose means this.
Yeah.
But for guys, we don't consciously think about it on a day-to-day basis. It's just something we just do. So when we go to take a photo and then we see that photo after taking it, it's like, well, that's not what I intended on sending. Because we aren't like consciously thinking about, well, if I
Yeah.
pose like this means this. But then when we see the photo, it's like, what?
Yeah, no, I
don't
can
know.
agree with. I mean, I definitely have like retaken photos of myself to like.
Plus, it just takes so much time. I like
It does take
communication to be faster, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I like short, like, simple messages. It's just like,
See,
quick.
I don't like Snapchat because the person knows when you saw it. Because like I'm like
It's interesting.
I feel like I'm exposing myself, but like I'm the type of person that I will look at your text message and then just like forget about it for 10 minutes.
See, I don't have like read flags on my phone.
No,
But
I don't
thinking
know
about turning them on. I'm actually changing a little bit.
Really? Why
As I
would you
get
wanna turn
more
them on?
professional, especially through my degree at
Yeah.
college, and I'm taking more like leadership roles on different teams. I'm finding myself more and more just enjoying or finding like a better use case for letting people know, okay, I saw your message.
See, but that's
Because
what
there's so
the,
many times where it's like I
reactions
send
are
like
for.
a little thumbs up, but it's
Yeah.
easier if I don't have to send a thumbs up because there's a lot of times where it's like this doesn't really require like a thumbs up, and that seems less professional.
I guess.
So a simple read flag actually is kind of nice. I do like it, and I was always against it. Like, why would you let them know? But back then, I did play a little more games,
Yeah.
and that was early on in a relationship. Whether it's the fact that I've matured more, or maybe it's just we're more secure in a relationship, and I don't play games anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a complex one, but
I don't
Yeah,
know. I just think
and I
it's
can get why you
I
wouldn't
just
like
think it's
Snapchat.
rude. You know, like
to what?
to have your read receipts on. Is it receipts or like
It says read flags.
read receipts, right?
Red receipts?
That's just weird.
Read,
I always
What's
think
the
of it
difference?
as
Read,
read receipts because it's like you read it, you know.
Yeah.
But
Is that what it's called? Read receipts? I thought it was read flags. Maybe
No,
it depends on what app
read
you have or
receipts.
phone you have.
that's what everyone always says.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
I don't know. I just like for me, it would feel like rejection almost. But like I think I'm very, I'm very
See-
sensitive to rejection. as
See,
well.
but that's the thing is you're also reading into the complexity of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Well, with guys, just be like, oh, done with the conversation. Good.
Yeah.
It's like full stop. We're good to go.
Yeah. I guess for me, I always think like, especially, when we're talking, I feel like our conversation is like a continuum,
Yeah.
Like it never ends. It just keeps going. But like,
See,
yeah.
at least with myself, I'm not that way. For me, it's like, okay, when does this conversation over? When have we reached the
Oh
end?
my God, stop talking to me.
Not like that. Enjoy the conversation, but it's, and maybe this comes down to also when you're more masculine, you tend to be more task oriented. So it's like, when can I complete this task?
I can get that, yeah.
While with people who are more feminine, tend to be more like multitaskers and like
Yes.
things to evolve over time, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of like you like to juggle multiple things. So it's like, okay, well, this is going
that
on.
might be another aspect of why I like texting, why more feminine people like texting is because you can have multiple conversations going on at once.
True. See, I don't like having multiple conversations going on too much.
Yeah. I don't like too many, but like I can handle a few. Especially, okay, so this is what I like, right? If something exciting or something really funny, or if I had an issue that happened, I like being able to like message multiple people and get multiple different answers back.
I would hate that. If I have to type the same stuff multiple
Let's
times,
copy paste, dude.
even copy paste, like
You're just lazy, maybe.
too much. Maybe I'm just lazy.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's the whole thing.
Yeah, guys are just lazy.
Yeah. All right, that's the model.
Oh, well, that was productive.
Figured out the answer.
Yeah. No, because I don't know. Like, the more facets, the better.
Yeah, I get that. At the same time, if I have multiple conversations open, it's like I want to just focus on one and give it like the attention it deserves. As
Yeah.
opposed to feeling
I
I'm
don't
splitting
like
resources.
having different conversations of, like, vastly different topics.
Sure.
Like, I like them to be related to each other.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that do
Yeah.
enjoy having like multiple conversations open at the same time.
Yeah. And that could just be, like, a personality thing.
Yeah, very much so. That doesn't have to boil down to
Yeah.
masculine versus feminine.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, thank you so much for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Please comment. Let us know what you think. Anecdotal stories.
Yeah.
Please send us walls a text. She will be more than happy to read them.
Yeah.
And I will skim over them. But
or let us know if you have any other topics that you'd like us to cover that we haven't already done before.
Yeah, we have tons of topics kind of planned out, but
always open to suggestions.
Suggestions are amazing. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. We will see you in the next video. Bye.